What are you doing?
I'm changing your biology grade.
And remember, we believe in the honor system here, boys and girls.
Now what are you doing?
Other treatments include compassion and physical reassurance.
I'm okay, really.
You will be all right. There.
Thanks, Baymax.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Mr. Fred's Tech Talks. I'm your host, Mr. Fred, and today is a special one. So, over the past 4 episodes, we've been exploring artificial intelligence together. What it is, how it works, how to use it, and even how to prompt it. Now that brings us to where we are. We're now at episode 10. And so think of today as... That's right, your graduation day. So you've made it through our AI mini-series, and in this final class session, we're going to answer 3 real questions. 1 from a parent, 1 from a student, and 1 that I left you hanging with last week. So let's go.
Talking about gadgets, games, and gears. AI buzzing in your ears. Parents, teachers, kids unite. We're learning tech and doing it right. Oh, it's a tap, swipe, scroll kind of show where zeros and ones are ready to go. From old school DOS to robots that talk, we're jamming with Mr. Fred's Tech Talks.
So when we began this series, I was posting a few things out on social media where I prompted anyone who was following along, whether it was on Instagram, Facebook, X, wherever it was, to let me know the questions that you had. And it was a great response. It was a lot of fun and we had a lot of nice interactions. So I decided to try to take a cross-section of the questions as best I could that really do represent a question that was also coming up kind of frequently. Now the one from the young man is a little bit more unique, but I think it kind of represents the niche or a specialized area that you might have a little bit of concern. So let's check out this first one. This is more or less a parent's concern. So a mom recently asked me, with AI in schools, how will my kids really learn? Won't they just cheat with it? That's a really powerful question because she's right to be concerned. If a chatbot could spit out a 5-paragraph essay in seconds, how does that possibly build learning? But here's the thing. Every new tool in education sparks this same debate. Think back to calculators. At first, people said, kids will never learn math if they could just use a calculator. Well, what happened? Teachers adapted. They stopped testing just arithmetic, and instead started focusing on problem solving. We saw this, a lot with a lot of that we call disruptions. So this past week, I was with my students and I was trying to get them to understand what a technology disruption was. And the example that I often refer back to, probably one of the most recent ones besides AI, was the arrival of the smartphone. So I take them back to 2007. Now, I've been teaching a long time, but when I asked the question, where were you in 2007? I was a little bit caught off guard when they reminded me that some of them weren't even born yet. So that all being said, disruptions have always been taking place. And once again, the most recent probably being the arrival of the smartphone. I was with a friend who's also retired as an educator, and she reminded me too of another period that goes way back, almost as far back as to the 1970s. When she was teaching, she reminded me that students would also have a disruptive element in the classroom. And I asked her what that was. And she had said when students would be in class with their textbooks open, they would have them propped up a little bit, but inside of the textbook would be their comic books. Now, if you don't know what a comic book is, you can go out there and Google that. But I think most of you understand what a comic book was. But they were using that right there in the classroom. So we've always had some kind of disruption inside of the classroom. And it ultimately comes down to how does a teacher really start to manage it? So it's an interesting history in that sense. So with teachers, learning to adapt, well, that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen with AI. It's very disruptive right now, and there's a lot of teachers addressing it. I was fortunate enough to actually speak to a school district here this year, and First of all, get the teachers up to speed on what AI really is and what it's not, and then give them some tips on how they can deal with some of these concerns with cheating. But as I said, teachers are already rethinking assignments. Instead of write me an essay, it might be used, say, AI to brainstorm ideas and then defend your position out loud in class. So will AI make cheating easier? Sure it will. But it will also push schools to teach critical thinking, questioning, and creativity. And with parents and teachers guiding the kids, AI becomes less of a shortcut and more of a partner in learning. Go over to the next question. Now this one comes from a medical student who just so happens to be a friend of our family and a good friend of my son's. And his question, though, really does reflect, I would say, a concern from many of the professional fields. So he asked, how will AI impact the medical field? Now here, the stakes are a little bit higher. We're not just talking about homework, we're talking about people's lives. So AI is already helping in medicine. It's reading x-rays, it's analyzing scans, it's spotting patterns in lab results. These systems can process millions of images faster than any doctor can. But here's the key. AI isn't replacing doctors, it's supporting them. So think of it this way. AI can flag an unusual shadow on a scan, but it takes a trained physician really to sit down with the patient and explain what it means, and then recommend the next steps with compassion. So in medicine, AI is becoming a superpower for doctors and nurses and physician assistants and so on. It extends their reach, it's going to save time, and it's going to help them catch things sooner. But it's never going to replace the human side of care, the empathy, the judgment, the ethics. That's something no machine can really provide. Once again, I think if you are a fan of animation, the Disney Pixar animation, Big Hero 6 is a great story that brings to life, we'll say, a robot. And this robot has this very empathetic tone and abilities. But once again, that's science fiction, not science fact. And the human element is science fact. So we'll just keep an eye on this going forward. All right, here is the last question where I left the listeners hanging from last week. The question is, do our prompts train the chatbot? Now, when I teased this, we were talking about different ways to prompt, right? What do you type into ChatGPT so you can get a better result? But when you're putting it in, what is it? Is the chatbot really using it? Now, the answer to this one gets a little bit more technical, so let's try to keep this one simple. In the early days, yes, user prompts were often fed back into the training process. But now, things have changed. Today, it depends on the company and the version that you're using. As an example, ChatGPT by default does not train on your conversations anymore. Unless you've opted into data sharing, your chats aren't used to make the model smarter. So what does that mean? It means if you go out to ChatGPT today, OpenAI's website, and you create an account, you can have a free account that'll give you access to interacting with their chatbot. If you have the paid account, you have the ability to also go in and go into your settings, and you could choose what data you really want to share or not. A lot of people will by default just leave all of their prompts in the history. And that's where it could potentially use some information. Some chatbots, like the free or consumer grade versions, may use your prompts for improvement, but they're going to usually disclose this in their settings. Enterprise or education versions that are like being used in schools and workplace, these are licensed, but they specifically promise that your data is not being used for training. So ultimately, what does all this mean for you? Always assume that what you type might be seen, stored, or reviewed in some way. Don't share private info or medical data or anything confidential. And I'd like to say it like this. Using a chatbot is like talking in a crowded coffee shop. Assume somebody could overhear you. That's probably the safe way to think about it. Before we close out our AI mini-series, let's pack your graduation toolkit. We've covered a lot of ground. Most recently, we covered some frameworks to help improve your prompt, and that was using CRAFT, and also Frame, Filter, and Finesse. This way you could always, frame your prompt, filter the response, and then finesse it with your own voice. These aren't just AI tricks, they're habits of mind, and they make you a stronger thinker and a communicator in any field. And as a little graduation gift, don't forget, you can go over to the Get Me Coding website and grab my prompt guide. It's a simple guide that'll kind of guide you through what I just discussed here and shared with you. We've looked at what AI is, why it matters, how you use it, and today, the hardware behind it, how to think critically, how to use it safely. But I want you to remember this. AI will keep evolving, and it is evolving fast. But curiosity, creativity, and character, those are timeless. And that's what will help you and your kids thrive in this new world. So I'm Mr. Fred, and until next time, keep asking great questions because curiosity is the real intelligence.
I am Baymax.